What's up, Wargamers? Welcome back to World of Wargaming. I'm Isaiah, and today I invite you to pull up a chair, grab a snack, and let me talk at you for a minute. And the thing that I would like to talk at you about today is this book right here. The County Road Z Survivor Edition. Few things to preface with before we dig into here, though. So this book is not a true second edition. That implies that there are changes or overhauls to rules and mechanics, and there is not really any of that in here. There are a little bit of verbiage that has been changed, but all the mechanics that you're used to from playing County Road Z stay the same. This is much more of like a 1.5 edition kind of thing, where the existing rules and mechanics and layout have been cleaned up and clarified. There are some things that were kind of murky in certain editions of the original book, depending on, when you bought the book and things. But this has been cleaned up. It's being put out by Modiphius, which is a huge deal for Jordan. That's a big upgrade from having to do everything yourself. So this book, compared to the first book, looks much more professional. Now, Jordan himself has gone on record saying that he was kind of learning how to do layouts as he was doing the layouts for that first book. Now, don't get me wrong, I have no real qualms with the first book, but this one, if you have the first one and when you see this one, there is a substantial difference in quality for the better, which is awesome. It makes things a little bit easier to find. Things are in a little bit better order, I think. If you print it out yourself, don't be like me and put some pages in backwards and then have to go back and take the book apart and redo the pages. Make sure you got everything lined up the way it needs to be. On top of that, it adds in the existing content that Jordan had out, things like the Apocalypse Toolkit and Road Trip and things of that nature. It also has some brand new content. And those two things, the stuff that were added in as well as the things that are brand new, that's what we're really going to talk about today. I'm not going to dig into the mechanics of the game because those have not changed. And if you would like to know more about the mechanics of the game, feel free to take the link and go check out the Let Me Talk At You for the first book, because the mechanics there are the same as the mechanics here. Also, before we get into everything, I would like to mention that if you already have a campaign going, you do not need to start a brand new campaign to use the new things that are in this book. You can absolutely just kind of add them in as you choose and as you see fit to fit your campaign and your play style and the level of difficulty that you want to deal with. So don't think that just because you got this book, you got to start all over. You do not. You 100% can keep playing with your current community and just adding in these new features, as I said, as you choose and as you see fit. The next thing I would like to mention, and this is just for the sake of clarity for those of you that maybe have played a bunch of the first edition, it's no longer called the strategic layer and the tactical layer. We now have the community layer, and the community layer encompasses your mission phase, your advancement phase, your planning phase, and your management phase. So that's the primary example of where verbiage and words have been changed, but the mechanics, all that stuff, nothing has changed there. Throughout the book, there are little blurbs, little boxes that will reference you to certain other parts of the book, such as the Apocalypse Toolkit or one of the origin stories that now exist for the zombie apocalypses. And that's going to be, I think, probably the first thing that we talk about, because I think that's the first thing I get to in the book once we're through all of the stuff that we're familiar with. So in addition to the regular missions and the story missions that we've had since the first book, we now have 3 possible origins for the zombie apocalypse. We have a magical origin, which brings in magical monsters. Magic has gotten into the world and caused this kind of dark necromancer, caused the zombies. So you'll have like vampires, werewolves, stuff like that. Standard issue kind of gothic horror creatures. There is a cosmic, which is basically Cthulhu and his kin and his ilk showed up, and so you've got all kinds of tentacle beasts and crazy things going on. And then we have a viral outbreak origin, which is kind of your standard issue how the zombie apocalypse began with patient zero getting out of hand. And for each of those different origins, you get some special monsters. You get some special story missions to play through those events as you get to them and want to do that. And you also get some special weapons / abilities. So for example, if you play the magic origins, you get access to spells that your people can learn how to cast and use. And I don't know which of these I'm going to end up playing through for my community that I've got going. I strongly feel like it's probably going to be the cosmic one. Although if I did the magic one, I already have more of those models ready to go. I don't know what I'm going to do there, but I will figure it out at some point. I don't have to make that decision right now. I'll figure it out eventually. Next on things that were added into the book, the Apocalypse Toolkit is here in its entirety, which I love. I like the toolkit. The toolkit, if you're not familiar, is a lot of different optional rules and optional alternate zombies, both common and special, that you can incorporate into your game as you see fit to tweak the difficulty or tweak the experience of play. I've fiddled around with several of these, but not all of these, because I don't want to add too many things in one time and just to, for the sake of experimenting and then wipe my whole community because I was trying to do too much too fast. But those are always good. The horde break and the advantages and disadvantages and permanent injuries that your characters can have, those things are a lot of fun for making your game a little bit more realistic / variable, a little bit more chaos, a little bit more things that can go wrong or can go right. The weather complications are great, but there's another feature that's been added to the game, which I am incredibly excited about, that kind of overrides the need to use the weather complications, and that's okay. We also have some origin traits for the viral, cosmic, and magic apocalypses, and these are for when you're rolling for advantages or permanent injuries on characters. You can get a viral advantage, a cosmic advantage, and a magic advantage, and you can also get a viral injury, cosmic injury, and magic injury. The special traits and stuff are something that I haven't been able to play with because I would need to find a new member of the community to go through the character creation process to give them the opportunity to get those things. But it works off of either, for things that are bad, you'll get bonus XP when you use them. For things that are positive, you get what is called an XP debt. So you owe XP until that debt is paid off. That character can't actually accrue XP, which is a really, really, really neat system. I just need to recruit a new member in order to take advantage of it and play around with it. After the Apocalypse Toolkit, we come to the part of this, the thing that was added into this book that I am probably the most excited about, which is a timeline. It looks like this. It's broken up into kind of 4-week sections, and it adds another layer of the world, I guess. So it starts off in March, weeks 1 to 4. You have charts that you roll on to see what the weather's going to be for that mission, and then there's special zombies that can occur depending on how far into the progression you are. Seeing as the last game that I played involved a blizzard, I think that I'm going to just pick up the timeline at the beginning and move forward from there. So each one, you've got basically month increments, and it's going to be like 4 games. So you got 4 games in March, 4 in April. And as the winter progresses, you have to do things like get a greenhouse over your garden. So there are a few new base and facility upgrades, I believe, because I don't think the greenhouse was around before. But you've got to kind of prepare for winter. And this also provides me the opportunity to do something that I've been wanting to do for a really, really long time, which is to have the gaming mats and the trees and foliage and kind of stuff necessary to be able to rotate through the seasons as I play games. That's something that I've thought would be really, really cool for a long time, and I just haven't gotten around to do it. But I'm at the point where I don't need any terrain, I don't need any models for a little bit, so I'm going to be over the next couple of months probably looking at ordering some mats to fill that out. And then I've got trees, I've just got like frames, I've just got to sit down and actually put in the time and the effort to get them flocked / based / snow on them or whatever, for whatever time of year they're going to be. I've got trees that'll work fine for spring and summer, but fall and winter I need to work on adding to the collection. So the timeline gives me some justification and some reason to go through that, because if I'm planning it's supposed to be winter, I want the board to look more like winter. When I'm kind of rolling randomly, you never know, and once you got the table set up, you don't want to re-roll or reset it up because you rolled a blizzard or whatever weather. So the timeline is, yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. So I think that what I'm going to maybe be doing is going through the timeline, and at some point, maybe after a year of the timeline, or at some point in the timeline, I'll start digging into the origin missions and checking that stuff out and seeing that stuff come along. So that part's going to be really, really cool. Really, really, really excited about the timeline of the End Times addition to the book. Next up, we have the Road Trip supplement, which was created a little while back and has been around for a little while, but it is now officially into the main rulebook. Now, the Road Trip kind of changes the core mechanics of the game a little bit. Not as far as like what you're doing on the table, but a lot of stuff in the kind of the campaign phase, the off the table part, because you don't have a base. And there's not really a need for food and fuel, I think, or you just kind of ignore those things. Everything is referred to as materials. And in Road Trip, you're doing what it sounds like. You and one tier 4 character, one tier 3 character, and you have a tier 1 vehicle, and you're trying to get from A to B, from town to town. You're kind of scavenging resources off the landscape wherever you can get to. So it creates a very different kind of play experiences, and also I think the opportunity to set up a wider variety of tables than would necessarily always make sense if you're just kind of floating around one kind of town. That being said, it is possible to integrate road trip style missions into an ongoing regular campaign and vice versa, or to, when you're moving to a new base, do a road trip or mission 2 on your way to the new base and then switch back to the regular gameplay. You just got to make sure you're doing the right in-game phases at the right time and that kind of stuff. If you're going to be doing that, and you're going to be doing that in a campaign, it's best to see, he mentions that it's best to kind of start off with the standard issue way of creating party and choosing skills, and keep in mind that you're going to need those kind of utility and cooperation skills whenever you get to where you're going. The trip layer works slightly different. As I mentioned, it goes step 1, you have your mission phase where you're doing your thing, and in your advancement phase, you have your normal character advancement, your new survivors, and add materials to storage. Again, pretty much everything has been lumped under the name materials in this game, in this version of the game. Then we go to our planning phase, which is to assign trades, build any items that we need to build, and assign our mission team. In our management phase, we heal up, we check for rot, and we check our storage. And then in our travel phase, which says optional, see below, we generate a new town, we leave people behind, we spend travel resources, and we check for travel companions. And then we go into a slightly more detailed explanation of advancement things like for character advancement, which works the same. Creating new survivors works the same. Refer to page 13. Add your materials to storage. There's only one kind of material again. It's called materials. There's still a chance to gain rare items, however, so you roll a d10 on a 9 or a 10. You manage to find a rare item, and then there's a table below where you have player's choice, a roll on the rare equipment subtable, a roll on the rare weapon subtable, or a roll on the quality item subtable. Assigning trades in the planning phase says that equipment cannot be built when you're living out of your car, but you can trade. Standard items can be traded for by spending its trade cost in materials. Any number of equipment items can be built, traded for at a time if the community has the materials to spend. On a road trip, trades are instantaneous. That is different from the regular core gameplay where you pay up the materials for a trade, but the items won't show up until the next game. And trading items away works the same as it does in the base game. In the build items section, if your town has the correct facilities, you can build items by spending materials equal to the hardware cost of the item and allocating labor. On a road trip, your labor is equal to the total tier levels of every survivor in your community. Items built in a town's facilities are immediately added to your inventory. Everything else, pretty standard fare as far as checking storage, assigning mission members, healing up, all that stuff. We're going to jump over to the travel phase, because that's kind of a whole new phase. In the travel phase, you got to decide how far you're going to look, because you don't want to end up in some little podunk town that has nothing there for you, because then you've wasted resources to get there and there's nothing to help you recoup that loss. So in this step, you decide how many materials you want to spend on travel, and this will help determine the total features that the new town will have available when you get. Once you figured out how far you want to go, you got to get there. So you got to load up your vehicle or vehicles with however their normal passenger amount that they can hold is. Whoever doesn't fit doesn't get to go. They get left behind in the previous town to fend for themselves, and maybe they'll be there on your way back through. So on your way between points A and B, or B and A, you can experience complications, and this kind of replaces the siege threat element of the core campaign play. You roll a d10 to add the number of campaign turns since the last complication. If it is a 12 or higher, you've experienced complication. This could be a blown out tire, a detour, a horde crossing the road, any number of things. Next, we come to the town building section, which is where you're going to determine what there is to do and what facilities there are to use in the town that you're heading to. So in the town building section, we have two charts to roll on. One is for missions, one is for facilities. You get one roll on that chart for each material that you spent to get to that town. And you can choose to go back and forth between the two. You can normally only attempt each mission one time, so if you roll multiple instances, that's extra. So if you rolled 2 gather materials, that means you could do that mission 2 times. Your mission options are gather materials, vehicles, strangers, the rare goods trader, or a story mission. If you don't have a story mission attached to the survivors, then you can just re-roll that one because there's nothing there for you to do. Facility options are a medical clinic, an auto shop, a metal shop, a gunsmith, and a classroom. As far as the facilities go, if there's a medical clinic in the town that you're going to, anybody who's reduced to 0 health can be hauled off to the clinic after the battle to get well. It can hold any number of survivors, and they all get their own private room. So if somebody were to succumb to the rot, they're cloistered away and not able to bite anybody else before they're discovered and dealt with. If the town you're rolling into has an auto shop, that means that your vehicles will not break down when deployed for a mission. Without an auto shop, only tier 1 vehicles will remain operational when deployed on a mission. An auto shop will also meet the requirements or the prerequisite for building items and equipment. A metal shop in town means that you can upgrade one shoddy piece of equipment to a standard piece of equipment, and it will also meet prerequisites for workshop and metal shop when making equipment. A gunsmith will allow you to replace all of your shoddy traps with standard traps, which will remove the thing where you can set them off yourself as a survivor, because nobody likes the idea of blowing themselves up with their own traps. And if there is a classroom of some sort available to you, it allows everybody to get an extra experience point, and it also allows people who did not go on the mission to also earn an experience point. Next, we come to the travel complications. I'm not going to go into the details of all of them because they are pretty... Mechanics aren't self-explanatory, but you can get the idea. You can run out of gas. You can come across a bridge that has been taken out, a horde on the road, a military checkpoint, or a train crossing. And then each of those gives you what you need to know to do to play out that particular scenario. And then it gives you some missions for ford the river. Well, we got a mission in here. We got road trip missions, mission ford the river, mission breakdown, and then we come to tools of the trade, which are a set of rules that allow you to up the realism factor of your guns and weapons and combat and stuff like that. It tweaks that up. It makes it a little bit more crunchy. It introduces a new type of material called ammunition, which, as it sounds, is ammunition for your weapons. If you don't have ammunition, you can't shoot. And there's a limited amount. You can carry up to, I think, 2 you can have your weapon fully loaded plus one other full reload, which on a pistol or something, that's probably a few shots. On a shotgun, that might not be as many shots unless you've got somewhere you can fit, 5 rounds in your shotgun. But if it's a double barrel, you only got 4 shots, and sometimes that's just not enough. Now, because it's tweaking things up, it does introduce something new, which is a personal defense weapon, something like a boot knife or a Bowie knife or something like that. That only makes a noise of 2, and everybody can carry one without it really taking up a slot. Now, in this Firearms Rework section, it lays out the rules to basically build any kind of weapon you want by giving you a number of traits, things that range from being accurate to both barrels, burst fire, double tap, small rounds, point blank, large rounds, knockback, pros and cons to the weapon to allow you to kind of build the weapon that you're looking for. And then it also gives you a list of a lot of different weapons, things like break actions, pump actions, lever actions, different kinds of handguns, different kinds of long gun ammo types, different kind of handgun ammo types. So you got small caliber, medium caliber, large caliber, massive caliber, which I assume is going to be like your Deagles. There's things in here for magazine size, for attachments like flashlights, lasers, rangefinders, quick mags, speed loaders. There's a rework for archery, where you can have a maximum of 12 shots, versatile reload. There's melee weapon additions. There's a lot of stuff in here to make the combat element crunchier and a lot more involved. I kind of like the simple, streamlined combat mechanics because I feel like it helps the game keep moving pretty quickly, but I've seen many posts where people want something a little bit more in-depth for the combat, and so this provides that option for you. The key combat revision here is that it brings into effect where you hit the zombie. So when you go to hit something, you roll a d10 and a d6. The d10 determines, as always, your hit. The d6 determines where you hit. Now, there is a way to modify this. For every additional defense that you give to the zombie, it allows you to convert dice down. So normally, a 1 would be that you hit him in the legs. You give them +1 defense, that 1 rolls down to a headshot. And then, so if you did it for 4 defense, a 4, everything 4 and under would convert to a headshot, but it makes it much harder to hit. This is to tweak with some of the issues you can get into with where you can't really miss with certain models once you use the late game. Now, this combat revision can be used independently or with the previous reworks for weapons and everything. So you don't have to use the weapons and ammunition and stuff to use this aspect of the revision. So this is something that I may very well try out. We come into the character sheets and the index, which is a pretty extensive and well done index as far as being able to find where everything is. Still no quick reference in there, but there are quick references in the Facebook group. That's easy to get a hold of if that's something that you want. I've already got mine printed out, so I'm ready to go. And that brings us to the end of the new stuff that's been added to this book. Now, again, if you've already got a copy of the first edition rulebook, you can still keep using that book. You're not going to be playing with out-of-date rules. And I wanted to mention that before mentioning this. The new edition book does have a higher price tag than the previous one. That's going to happen when you're dealing with the quality of book that Modiphius is putting out. But the book is, I want to say $50. Plus, if you live in the States, there is a substantial shipping rate to get it over here. Now, that being said, when you buy it, I think it's still in pre-order. I think they're going to be shipping out like into January, into February, something like that. When you pre-order it, you will get immediate access to the PDF. I'm not certain if there is an option to just buy only the PDF. It may be a slightly lower price tag. I'm not exactly sure about those details, but I know the book's about $50, which is par for the course for Modiphius' books. That's what you're going to pay for the 5 Leagues or Parsecs or the new Rangers book or any of those books they put out. That's just kind of their benchmark process. But that being said, they do make really, really, really nice books. I recently got my hands on a copy of the 3rd edition 5 Leagues from the Borderlands, and it's the first time I've ever actually had one of their books, like a physical copy of it. And it's a real, well, I take that back because I have the green copy of Rangers of Shadow Deep, which is the Modifius printed, and it's a really, really, really nice book as well, and it was like $45-50. But I say if you've got the 1st edition and you're not absolutely dying for new content, you can probably wait a little bit and pick it up. But if you're new to the game, then I would say definitely get this version. Don't go get the other one. Get this one because this one is going to have all the new content, and it's also a little bit easier. I would say probably if you're brand new to the game, it's probably going to be easier to figure out the game in this rule book compared to the old one, which does require a little bit of filling in the blanks and sometimes some question asking and fact/errata checking. But all that out of the way, I think you should go get it. To support Jordan and to support this amazing game. And I'm already grateful that you came here and watched this and helped support me. Also, I forgot to mention, I didn't forget to mention this, but I didn't want to lead with this because I didn't want to seem like vain or anything. But my name's in this book under the art credits. I helped do some of the smaller sketches. Jordan wanted some kind of in-world sketches, like stuff that was being done by some of the characters in the world. And so I got to do that. And let me see if I can find one. Here, this is one of them where they're stuck in the tree stand. All of the ones that are kind of like this, these kind of simple, sketchy, pencil-looking drawings, these are by me. There's about 10 of them in the book, and a lot of them come with these little kind of like story blurbs of what's going on in the world around it, and I just think that's really, really cool. I'm really, really proud and excited to have gotten to be a part of that. Thank you, Jordan, for that opportunity. So, yeah, I got my name. My name's in the credits, and that's just a really, really, really cool feeling for me. Thanks so much for tuning in, hanging out, letting me talk at you for a few minutes about the County Road Z Survivors Edition 1.5-ish. We're not going to call it a 2nd edition. I hope you have an absolutely amazing rest of your day.